What's up, guys? Your boy TGK here with another episode of What's Up with the Mavs, episode 7. Got to record this a second time because of mic issues. Anyway, man, let's drop that intro and let's get straight into it. All right, man, if you checked out last week's video, I showed a little insert of Pod George's podcast where he talks about Luka, and I got copyrighted. So moving forward, if there is something to share, I'm going to just share a photo and play the audio over it because I ain't got time to be dealing with copyright stuff or even potential strikes. Anyway, man, let's get straight into the first topic today. All right, so as you know, this episode or these shows are about what happened over the last week in Mavs world, and a lot of the Mavs world news outlets and stuff like that is going to be stemmed right now on FIBA. There's plenty of Mavericks playing in there. And then there's also some other stuff like Mark Cuban on a podcast, Rajon Rondo talking about Rick Carlisle and his Mavs tenure, Luka Doncic ongoing injury, forever in a day injury that's going on right now, which I'll save for the end, and then some Christian Wood news. So let's go ahead and let's jump straight into all this stuff. All right, man, first things first, Australia and Slovenia went head-to-head last week. Luka Doncic put on a interesting performance, which at the very end of the game, he was able to demonstrate things that I loved that he did. You know what I'm saying? Yes, it was a fun game. There was things about the game where I was like a little bit upset with the coaching, which I feared how it would transcend moving forward. But at the end of the game, Luka Doncic with an amazing athletic block on Josh Green to seal the game. Beautiful. That was beautiful. It was right at the rim. Luka Doncic come out of nowhere and just swat that out of nowhere. Dope to see. Amazing to see. I'm just like, all right, this is a new Luka we're about to get. Either way, but as far as what I saw in the game, I saw that the coach wasn't making enough adjustments for Luka to make the game easier for Luka. So I had a little bit of apprehension for the Slovenia team moving forward because it just seemed like without Luka they couldn't get much going. And then the way they utilize Luka is the coach allowed everyone to have eyeballs on Luka, right? So I wanted him to post Luka up some more. That way people have to look for Luka versus everyone can see him. You get what I'm saying? Make the defense have to think, make the defense have to work, as opposed to Luka's just at the perimeter, ISO-ing, get a pick and roll, and then you go. Like, you don't have that kind of talent around Luka to just pick and roll these teams to death. You got to try something different, and I feel like the coach didn't do that. But they won, but my thoughts were correct because in the next couple of games, it was obvious. Then Slovenia ends up taking on Germany, and in that game, Luka came out on fire. He was outscoring Germany, and then in the second quarter, it was a wrap. It was game over. I think Luka Doncic aggravated his thigh strain injury, which is something we will get to at the end of this video. I will save it for the end. But what's his name? Schroeder started shredding Slovenia. All right, man, it was embarrassing. It was tough to see. But even during that game, even with Luka hobbling and dealing with his injury, they still failed to make any adjustments. I don't understand it for the life of me. I feel like I should be a coach. You have to put Luka on a block or try something different, utilize him in a different way, as opposed to he has to fight across screens just to go get the ball. And then he has to fight that defender to get by him. Like, they didn't make anything easy for Luka. On top of the defense, not making anything easy on Luka. And the Slovenia coaching staff was to blame for that. I could be wrong, but that is just my 2 cents. Because the game was still within reach. They just played it smart and they decided not to. But now the Slovenia is moving on to the next round of games, and they get to take on Canada for the much anticipated Toby versus Dwight Powell matchup. And man, what a matchup it was.
Toby, 6 rebounds, 8 points. Dwight Powell, 5 rebounds, and no other stats. Toby and Slovenia, I guess they won that battle, but Dwight Powell and Canada won that war. Because Canada has Dylan Brooks, SGA, Kelly Olynyk, RJ Barrett, Lou Dort, and Dwight Pizzle Powell.
And they gave it to Slovenia, man, 100-89. Luka Doncic can only do so much with limited talent on his team. But yeah, man, there's like a silver lining to it because at least Luka doesn't have to play much more after this. But then there's also a con to it because there's a qualification game between Slovenia and Lithuania, which I am just apprehensive as to why Luka Doncic even has to play this. I understand it's to keep them in like consideration for the Olympics to keep their standing up there. Well, at that point, let Luka Doncic's teammates go earn that. Luka Doncic shouldn't have to go earn that. Let his teammates earn that they are good enough to keep them in contention for the Olympics. Now where Luka has to go and play his ass off again just to keep Slovenia relevant in that aspect. But that is just my 2 cents. But I'm a biased Mavs fan. That's hilarious. Anyway, but that's just my 2 cents on that. I really don't see why Luka Doncic had to play against Lithuania. Slovenia, the other guys could go and earn it if they are up for the task and if they're good enough. But I'm pretty sure they're going to utilize Luka. But yeah, man, that is going to be it for Slovenia. Slovenia is now not going to be able to go and win the FIBA tournament, but they made a good little run. They just didn't have enough talent surrounding Luka to make much of an impact or even much noise in this FIBA tournament. All right, man, let's talk about Mark Cuban and the podcast with Pat Beverly. Here's my 2 cents with it. Mark Cuban spoke about trading players. I smoke too much. Mark Cuban talked about how certain behaviors or actions by players impact their money-making capabilities from his perspective. And then he also spoke about Kyrie. And it wasn't like mean or rude or anything, but it could be construed in different ways. Talking about, is he a Hall of Famer if he played on 5 teams? And I know he's trying to speak like positively about it, saying that Kyrie understands the scenario, but at the same time, here's where I come into play on this. Like in the beginning of that podcast, I felt the Mavs topics, speaking about the Mavs, it was just so like on the edge of my seat, like, please don't say nothing stupid. The rest of the podcast got better after that. But it comes to a certain point where, like Mark Cuban, you don't have to be the maverick by definition and act like this guy that stands out, that does what he wants. You don't have to be the brand. Protect your brand. Like, stop trying to put yourself out there and make us look bad. We've already have enough situations where the Mavericks don't look the best as far as perception, right? Perception is everything. And Mark Cuban just sometimes speaks a little too loosely. Like he's willing to speak about trading players for smoking weed. He's willing to speak about Kyrie and, you know, certain statuses about him. But you're not willing to speak why you kept Dwight Powell. You're not willing to speak why you let Christian Wood walk. You're not willing to speak why you didn't give Jalen Brunson a contract. You're not willing to speak why you tore up the 2011 championship team. You're not willing to speak on these things in the fashion that you need to speak on it. And that fashion is, I take full accountability for these boneheaded decisions on my end. I love the Mavericks. I love Mark Cuban at the same time. But somebody got to call these things out. And yeah, maybe I have aspirations of wanting to one day work with the Mavericks. But if I cannot keep it real without working for them, then how am I ever going to be able to keep it real if I ever get to work with them, right? But this is, as far as the Dallas Mavericks are concerned, they're my favorite team. They're the team that I care about the most in all of Dallas. And when the owner speaks so loosely and carelessly sometimes about the team, it irks me to no end, man. I want the Mavericks to not only improve their perception in the league, I want them to improve their standing amongst players in the league. And I want our owner to just protect the brand and not be the brand behind the Mavericks. You get what I'm saying? I hope I'm not losing y'all. I hope I'm not saying just things to say it. But what I'm saying is that it wasn't the worst on what Mark Cuban was saying. We've heard worse, the mixtape stuff and all this other stuff, right? But man, just stop it, bro. Just stop it. Just stop. Stop. Mark Cuban, stop. Go do podcasts with Bobby Altoff and speak about things not Mavs related. And I'm cool with that. But just don't talk about the Mavericks unless it's things you're going to take accountability for. I mean, I don't mind the stories. I think the stories in theory are pretty interesting. I think they're all right in certain aspects, but it's just, we have too much to lose where Mark Cuban is just speaking freely and carelessly. It's just, no, you got to stop, Mark. Please stop. Next thing on the list, Rajon Rondo talks about his tenure with the Mavericks, and he speaks more about Rick Carlisle. And he spoke, and you know, he pointed out that they had a falling out, but he spoke pretty well about Rick Carlisle. Things that he said that he learned a lot about his ATOs. If you don't know, that is after a timeout play calls. And Rick Carlisle is definitely one of the best ATO play caller in basketball in general. He also talked about how he would put Rajon Rondo against a 6'8" guy and then they would run zone and then switch it back up to man, and that he basically appreciated how unorthodox Rick Carlisle's style was. So it was cool to hear. Ray John Rondo on the JJ Redick podcast. If y'all looking for it, definitely go check it out. I would have showed it, but I ain't trying to get copyrighted, man. But yeah, spoke well about Rick Carlisle. Who would have thought that? That was not on my bingo board today. Not at all. And then the next thing, if you were on Mavs Twitter, on Twitter in general last night, you saw that Christian Wood ended up getting picked up by the Los Angeles Lakers. Congratulations to him. But he didn't get the bag that he should have got. And you wonder why. I felt like the Dallas Mavericks did him no justice in the way they treated him. They cost him a bag. They depleted his value. And they hurt his image across the league. Yes, I understand there's certain things that he didn't do that you needed him to do, but to point him out as the all man out as to why we didn't bring him back for a cheap deal, or why we kept Dwight Powell over him, or why we didn't bring let me stop. But I'm just saying, good for him. Hope he does well. But man, it's like a sour spot for me when it comes to the Dallas Mavericks, because we didn't have to do that man like that, and we sure as hell did. And it doesn't look very well on us. Again, back to the whole Mark Cuban thing and our perception. Our perception needs to be protected, and it's like we don't protect it with all our might. And I just felt we could have done better by Christian Wood. And now we're gonna have a player out for vengeance and revenge against us next year. But I did hear Keyshawn Johnson and Richard Sherman speak about this, and they said that Christian Wood allows Anthony Davis to play the 4. Bro, where the hell did y'all get that from? To play with LeBron James, you need to have players that can spread the floor and allow LeBron James to orchestrate the offense and have shooters, or for him to just drive it to the paint, right? That is the formula for LeBron. Christian Wood is not going to LA to allow Anthony Davis to play the 4. It's not how it's going to work. Like, do they think Nikola Jokic is going to get locked down by Christian Wood? Do they think Valanciunas is going to get locked down by Christian Wood? Do they think any of these other Western Conference centers are going to get locked down by Christian Wood? Or is he out there just for fouls? Because Lakers fans and their delusions to believe that this signing was for defense, it is not for defense. This is to help spread the floor for LeBron. He's not out there to be your defensive anchor like a Tyson Chandler. Yeah, he's 6'10", but he is, man, I hope the Lakers think that they got a defensive stalwart, because the Mavericks will eat that up all day. I mean, we saw it firsthand, but it is just funny to hear that. But regardless, I'm glad he got something. I hope he rebuilds his reputation and his value in the league. But the Dallas Mavericks left a sore taste in my mouth, pause, with how we treated Christian Wood. It was uncalled for, man. And this goes back to Mark Cuban and the organization and how they need to fix the way they handle players and the way they handle relations, man. Because leadership, coaching, if you had a problem with the player not following his role, not sticking to his role, that is up to those guys. It is up to leadership, ownership, and coaching to be able to cultivate an environment for where the player understands the role and sticks to it, as opposed to not sticking to it. And it's probably because we gave Christian Wood no purpose, no belonging, no reason to be here, no reason to care about the team. We gave him none of that. So why would we expect him to fill into a role that makes him feel less than? Anyway, man, let's get to the next topic. And last but not least, let's talk about this Luka Doncic thigh injury. Forever and a day, ongoing, forever, always, injury here in Luka Doncic's thigh. We're talking about March of 2023. He injured it in a game against the New Orleans Pelicans, I believe. And he has been hurt since then. He has been trying to massage it, trying to deal with it, trying to work with it. And he re-aggravated it against Germany. I'm pretty sure the Canada game didn't help it any bit. And there's no point he should be playing against Lithuania. Now, here's my thing with that. I felt like this year he shouldn't have played. I don't think he should have played any summer games. And I understand it means a lot to him to play for his country. I truly do. I would love to play for my country, but I can't, because I'm not that good. But for Luka, sometimes you got to understand, you know what? I'll go ahead and forego this summer. I'll give him all next summer, but I need to get healthy. And right now, as much as he'll say that he's all right, that he's good to go, You're not good to go, bro. It's the same injury from 6 months ago. Like, are you really good to go? Do we want, as Maverick fans, do we want Luka coming into the season at 60, 70% healthy? Who does it benefit? Who does it help? It doesn't help us. It doesn't help him. It doesn't help the team succeed. So I hope he doesn't have to play against Lithuania in this qualification meaningless game. And I hope he gets to begin his rehab and begin his recovery and healing his injury all the way through, because we need a Luka Doncic that is at 100% and not at 60 or 70%. That is just my main concern. And, you know, for those that might agree or disagree, I don't know, man. I don't think this is what we need from Luka Doncic. You get what I'm saying? And, yeah, I hope we fix that injury. Anyway, guys, been your boy TGK. Hope y'all enjoyed this episode. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and catch y'all next week on episode 8. We out.